Tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to occur. And on top of all this, we're not done. You get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, techniques, and mentalities, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the skill of accurate thinking. Thinking accurately is a skill, and it is one that you can acquire through practice when you have the right information and the proper instruction. And guess what? I'm going to provide both for you here today. So before we get into this, first let me remind everybody that I send out a daily motivation text message every single morning to everyone who's in my texting community. If you would like to receive that text, all you got to do is text me and let me know you want it. My number is 305-384-6894. The text is free of charge. You'll get it every day straight to your phone, guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point for the day ahead. The number, once again, 305-384-6894. Text me at that number, and once you start getting my text, you can actually respond to those texts and you can engage directly with me through that text message number, because that is me who responds to and handles those text messages. So, and that number is down below in the show notes as well. So now, the skill of accurate thinking. This concept of accurate thinking was first introduced to me, and maybe to many others, through the book Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill way back almost 100 years ago. And he says the following about accurate thinking. This is all a quote. Accurate thinking involves two fundamentals. First, you must separate facts from mere information. Second, you must separate facts into two classes, the important and the unimportant. Only by doing so can you think clearly and accurately. Accurate thinkers permit no one to do their thinking for them. Gather information and listen to the opinions of others, but reserve for yourself the privilege of making decisions. Truth will be truth, regardless of a closed mind, ignorance, or the refusal to believe. Close quote. Now, if you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you might have noted at least 5 or 6 different topics that I've covered here on this show were all addressed just in that statement there by Napoleon Hill on the concept of accurate thinking. First of all, understand the difference between facts and information. How I talked about facts don't matter as much as opinions these days in certain circles. Not that the facts don't matter at all, but opinions have become more popular as far as swaying people's decision makers, certain types of people. Understanding what is important and what's not important in life. We talked about this in other episodes of the show. I'm actually going to tell you, so all you know that I'm not bullshitting you when I tell you. Episode 1407, I told you that subjective opinions matter more than facts now. I told you in episode 927 why vision is greater than facts. When we talk about what information is important and what is unimportant, and knowing what is important and what's not, that was episode 390. Important versus unimportant. Which one is which? And you need to know the difference between the two of these, and we're going to talk about that here today. When we talk about accurate thinking, that is, I never did an episode on accurate thinking. That's why we're doing it here today. But as far as thinking clearly and accurately, being able to have clear direction. That was episode 1700, how to stop drifting, have clear direction, and start hustling. Episode 761, how to get to the point clearly. Episode 692, how to set clear goals in life. Episode 440, clear and direct, communication principles for adults. And episode number 410, stories we tell ourselves versus the truth. Let's make sure that we are getting clear. So gathering information and listening to other people's opinions is a good thing to do, but you are the one who in the end has to make the decision. And we talked about decision making. I'm not even going to list all the episodes I have on decision making, but in episode 296, how to start making your own decisions. Episode 246, how to be more decisive. Episode 229, a real decision does not have a plan B. Episode 1923, choices and decisions are greater than circumstance and environment. And one more I'll give you, episode 1574, how to be a professional decision maker. So as you can see, I'm just giving you those so you understand everything that Napoleon Hill talks about when it comes to accurate thinking. All these elements just in this phrase have been talked about here on the show many times before, but today we're going to go deep into just the subject specifically of accurate thinking. Let's get to it. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is the skill of accurate thinking. Number one tool you're going to need to be an accurate thinker is the skill of discernment. That is covered in episode 1431. Discernment, your skill of perception and judgment. You must see things for what they actually are, not what someone told you they are or what your emotions wish to believe. Let me say it again, because there are people out there, unfortunately, but fortunately they're listening to that, who don't know the difference between these three things. They have somehow in their minds melded all three to mean the same thing. They are three separate things. What are the three things I'm mentioning? First of all, what things actually are is one. A second thing is what someone told you it is. And the third thing is what your emotions want something to be. Those can be three different things. They are not all the same. And understand that just because someone told you that something is a certain way does not mean that's how it actually is. And it definitely doesn't mean you should believe it. And just because you emotionally want to believe something does not mean that's what it actually is. And this is what accurate thinking is about. It's understanding that being an emotional creature that you are, sometimes your emotions will want things to be one way, but they're not that way. They're a different way. And your accurate thinking needs to overpower and control, let's just say, your emotion, so that while your emotion may not immediately go away, you understand it needs to be tempered by the accuracy of your thinking. And regardless of who the person is who tells you something, it could be someone who you know, love, and trust, and who you want to believe. But if they're telling you something and the accuracy of your thinking, i.e. the facts and the rational logic of the situation is telling you that what that person is telling you, again, it could be a friend of yours, it could be a loved one of yours, that they're telling you some bullshit because the accuracy is telling you something different than what they said, then what are you going to believe? Are you going to believe your emotions because this person you know, love, and trust is telling you something? Or are you going to believe the facts because they're telling you what it is? All right, this is a call that you're going to have to make. And this is the skill of discernment, is seeing things for what they actually are and not what you want them to be. To give you an example, I once was moving to a new place, from the place that I was living to a different place. And the new place cost more than the place that I had already been living at. But there was nothing wrong with the old place. And I knew there was nothing wrong with the old place, logically. And Anna and I were speaking about it. And at one point in the conversation, when we were really trying to come to a decision, are we really going to move to this new place? I said to her, look, we're doing this because the new place we're moving to, this new condo, this is a bright, shiny object. And although it costs more, we're moving because we like it that much. And we are coming up with logical justifications and rationalizations to justify this emotional decision. And then we both laughed, and then we moved. That's exactly what we did. And the whole point is we had to get accurate about what the situation was. We were trying to come up with rationalizations for why to do it, that it made logical sense, but it wasn't really a logical decision. It was an emotional decision. We just came up with logical reasons to do it. And as a matter of fact, as of this recording, we're about to do it again, this time with a bit more of a logical decision, but still the exact same thing. Accurate thinking means, it doesn't mean that everything you do is going to be quote unquote right or correct. Accurate thinking means seeing situations for what they actually are and not as your emotional rationalizations, which is basically a logical reason that you come up with to justify an emotional decision, even though your logical reasoning usually is not going to make any sense when it's just driven by emotion. Not trying to come up with a rationalization just so you can feel good about yourself or what your rationalizations want you to believe. Because again, when they're driven by emotion, they're not always going to make great sense. And then when someone challenges you on them, you will have to come up with some bullshit in order to defend it. Don't do that. Just be an accurate thinker. You can be an accurate thinker while admitting faults. You can be an accurate thinker while admitting, look, I did something that probably I should not have done, or said something that I probably should not have said. And looking back, I probably wouldn't do it again. But at the moment, I knew exactly what I was doing, and that's what I chose to do. That's accurate thinking. Just being honest with yourself about what you're doing and why you're doing it and what is really going on, even if it means you have to point out maybe that you're wrong in some way, shape, or form. All right, so accurate does not necessarily mean that you are right. It doesn't mean you're correct. It doesn't mean that you are necessarily moral. It doesn't mean that you are more just than another person or more deserving or any of those things. It just means you are seeing things for exactly what they are, regardless of their level of righteousness. That is what accurate thinking means. Just be clear about what is going on, all right, no matter what it is. Now, this is a challenge for many people on many levels, but one level in particular. And it appears to be becoming even more of a challenge for even more people every single day, since we have so many people these days who are being led by their emotions and feelings more than they're being led by the accuracy of their thinking. These days, as I told you, opinions matter more than facts these days, is that when people have an emotional belief in something, that it almost becomes to the point of it being a religious belief for a lot of people, certain subjects and certain topics, that you can't come to them with anything rational or logical, because they're just not going to be able to hear it, because their emotions and their beliefs are so strong on a certain topic that there's nothing you can say that's going to change their mind. And this has led to we have a dearth of accurate thinking these days. We have a strong demand for accurate thinking, but a very low supply of accurate thinking. And this is the biggest challenge for a lot of people, is that they are being swayed by their emotions rather than being swayed by logic. We don't have a lot of people thinking too rationally. We don't have as many people, let's say, not as much of as high of a percentage of people is a better way of saying it, thinking rationally and being led by their logical, accurate thinking, as we have people who are being led by their emotions and their beliefs and the religious ideas that they have decided to implant in their mind. And when I say religious, I'm not talking about an actual religion like going to church or being Jewish. I'm talking about religious as in someone having an opinion that hardens into belief, that hardens into religion, which means even though an opinion should be flexible, when someone is strong enough on an opinion and they're emotionalized enough by an opinion that it can harden into a religion, which means no matter what information or facts or accurate logic is put in front of them, they will never budge from that belief. And that is a serious challenge for a lot of people when they start thinking that way, because you will have some opinions that end up maybe over time that opinion is not as valid as it was maybe a week ago or a year ago, but you're holding on to it because you allowed it to harden into a religion, instead of, as what I said in episode 734, keeping your opinions flexible. Every opinion you have, you should keep flexible, because when you get new information, new experiences, and just new perspectives, new ways of looking at things, you might decide to change your mind about a subject. But if you allow that opinion to harden into a religion, then you will never change your mind about it. Even as the world changes around you and your opinion looks completely outdated, you're still holding on to an opinion that makes no sense. And this is what happens to a lot of people in life, is happening to a lot of people right now. And in the future, a lot of people are going to have to look in the mirror, but then look away, because they're going to realize that they have some religious beliefs that should have just stayed as opinions, much lighter and much easier to let go of than a religious belief, but they won't be able to do anything about it. All right, this is a challenge. Don't let it happen to you. This is happening to people every day. Just don't let it happen to you. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the skill of accurate thinking. Number 2, there is often no one right answer to a situation. There are many situations in life where there is just one correct answer, and that's just what it is. For example, in mathematics, there's one right answer to doing some sort of algebraic equation, but there are often many times in life where there isn't a right answer. There's just whatever answer you chose in that moment, whatever decision that you made, given the circumstances at hand, and then you just have to go with it. Understand that being accurate does not always mean being correct. And I'm going to talk about that even more in a moment, because sometimes there are multiple ways of seeing things. This is the point. All right, being accurate just means seeing things as they are and to the best of your knowledge, even if you end up being wrong. Accurate thinkers can see all the options in front of them and all the ways of seeing a situation, not just the way that they approve of and not just the way that they have chosen for themselves. You can choose to do something one way, but at the same time understand that there were 5 other ways that you could have did that, but you chose this one way. And it's okay to admit to that. And this is where you see a lot of cognitive dissonance with people, where they won't even admit that there's 5 other ways they could have looked at a situation after they have chosen one. It's okay to say, I chose this one way of looking at it, but I do understand that there were 5 or 6 or 20 other ways that I could have addressed this. The person who says, well, there's only one way of looking at it and there's no other way and I don't hear anything else, and they refuse to engage with anything else, that person is not engaging, in that moment at least, in accurate thinker. Accurate thinkers can see everything. They see the whole chessboard. One thing that I can say for myself is that, being that I've coached a lot of people, from athletes to entrepreneurs to professionals and all types of people in between, being an accurate thinker means being able to point out to someone not only the virtues of their ideas and their perspectives, but also the flaws in their thinking, and also the strong points in any opposition that they may face. This is a very important point. I talked about this a lot in episode 1927, the steel man mentality. I'm going to repeat my point again and I'll explain it even deeper. Being I have a lot of experience coaching people, just talking to people, listening to them explain their thought process behind the actions that they make, actions that they take, and the decisions that they make. One thing that I know about being an accurate thinker is you must be able to note to another person, all right, here are the virtues of your ideas. Okay, these are the parts of your ideas that are actually good. Usually they don't have a problem taking that part in. They usually already are pretty clear on those things. But also, you have to be able, and it's a skill that I have, is to point out the flaws in somebody's thinking. Someone explains to me their thought process behind a decision that they either made or are about to make, and I'll point out to them, wait a minute, here's something that you haven't even taken into account. Here's something that you haven't even noticed. Here's something that you're not even mentioning in this process that is going to come up, and you can't act like this doesn't exist. An accurate thinker has to have the skill of looking at the situation, not just the parts that make you feel good, but the parts that may give you pause and the parts that you're going to have to figure out, what do I do about it if and when something happens. This is very important to know. Be able to point out the flaws in your own thinking and the thinking of others, and accept it when someone points out yours. And also, there's the other part of it, pointing out the strengths and weaknesses of your opposition. If you're in a competition or you're in the midst of some form of conflict right now, can you look at your opposition and say, hey, here are their strong points. If they were going to beat me, here's what they're going to use to defeat me. If I lose to them, here's going to be the reasons why I lose, because here's the things that they can use against me that I might not quite have the best answer for. You need to be able to look at your opponents and your competition in that way. And this is damn near impossible to do when you are being driven by your emotions, because your emotions don't want to give any credit or say anything positive about anyone with whom you're in conflict or anyone that you're going against. But a dispassionate, logical, accurate thinker can look at their opponent and say, okay, I don't like this person. I don't want this person to win in this situation. However, let's point out their strong points, because that's exactly what they're going to try to use against me. And if I act like they don't exist, then they're probably going to beat me with the very things that I'm acting like I don't see. So you have to be willing to look at things and see the parts that maybe your emotion doesn't want you to see. I heard an entrepreneur say one time, he said, anytime I'm facing a crisis in business and things are not working, I ask myself the following question: what am I pretending to not notice? What am I pretending to not see? What am I not paying attention to here that I really need to be paying attention to? And that's a really, really good set of questions. And any good entrepreneur is going to ask themselves that question. Any person who is smart and an accurate thinker in any situation where things are not working, you're going to ask yourself, what am I not noticing here? What's going on that I am either pretending to not pay attention to? Maybe I'm just not paying attention to that maybe somebody else could point out to me if I got a fresh set of eyes on this situation. If you're not asking yourself those kind of questions, I just gave them to you. So now you need to start asking them. These are important things to know, because if you allow your feelings and emotions to lead you to underestimating what or who you are up against, what happens is you will show up with an inaccurate assessment of what is necessary to get something done. And if you have an inaccurate assessment of what's necessary to achieve something, that could lead to you falling short, and not because you were incapable of succeeding, not because you didn't have the resources, simply because you didn't have the proper assessment of what was actually going on. You were inaccurate in your thinking, thus inaccurate in your preparation, and then inaccurate in your strategy. Accurate thinking includes giving credit where credit is due, even if it means giving credit to something or someone with whom you disagree. But many people are very, very incapable of doing this, again, because they're being driven by their emotions and not by their logic. And that's why we have so few accurate thinkers. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the skill of accurate thinking. Number 3, accurate thinking usually involving multiple people in your strategic process. The reason why you oftentimes need more than just you in formulating your strategy is because you are the closest one to your situation. Meaning you've seen everything, at least a little bit of it, through the lens of your human emotions. You are seeing things as you want to see them. And sometimes people call these your paradigms. They're like the glasses that you put on through which you see the world. So you're not seeing the world actually as it is, you're seeing it as you are, as the saying goes. This is normal and to be expected. All human beings do this. But here's the good news. Another human being, someone other than you, is not as emotional about your personal situation as you would be, because it's not their situation. It's very easy to look at another person's situation dispassionately and non-emotionally, but it's very hard for us to do it for ourselves because we are emotionally tied to our own lives, but we're not emotionally tied to other people's situations, at least not nearly as much as we are to our own. So it's normal to be expected that you'll be emotional looking at your stuff, your own stuff, but another person is not emotional looking at your stuff. So that person can look at your stuff and see things more accurately often than you can. Not always, but often they can. Now, this does not mean that just anybody can help you strategize in your life. You need to choose the right type of person. You want to bring somebody into your world and share with them what you're doing. You need to choose the right type of person who is an accurate thinker and the type of person who is a not friend, as I talked about in, what episode was that, where I told you about the not friends. That was episode number 1031. And these are somebody who's willing to tell you the truth, even if it may disappoint you. So someone who does not need to be your friend, but they are willing to help you out. And someone can help you without being your friend. They can just tell you what you need to hear, even though it may be a verbal slap in the face. But you need to choose that right type of person who has the right mental makeup who can do this. There should be someone other than you helping you in your strategizing. They are more dispassionate about what you're doing, what you're planning, and again, they are not emotionally tied to the outcome. At least hopefully they're not. And that is important for your accurate thinking. You need people who are not emotionally tied to a specific outcome, because then they can be honest about the situation. When you're emotionally tied to an outcome, it's hard for you to be honest about it because your emotions want certain things to happen a certain way, which means your emotions will lie to you. If it will help them get their way through you, your emotions will tell you lies all day, every day. So this is why you have to control your emotions. You are in the emotional management business. I told you that in episode 560, controlling your emotions, but also getting people around you who, again, their emotions will never be as strong as yours for your personal situation, and they can tell you some truths that you otherwise would have ignored. So all this said, let's recap today's class, which says the skill of accurate thinking. This is quoted from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Quote, accurate thinking involves two fundamentals. First, you must separate facts from mere information. Second, you must separate facts into two classes, the important and the unimportant. Only by doing so can you think clearly and accurately. Accurate thinkers permit no one to do their thinking for them. Gather information and listen to the opinions of others, but reserve for yourself the privilege of making decisions. Truth will be truth regardless of a closed mind, ignorance, or the refusal to believe. Close quote. Point number one. Discernment, seeing things for what they actually are, not what someone told you or what your emotions wish to believe. These are three different things. Make sure you are not confusing the three of them. Accurate thinking means seeing things for what they actually are, not as your emotional rationalizations want things to be. And understand, being accurate does not necessarily mean being moral or being just. It just means you are seeing things for exactly what they are, regardless of their righteousness. This is a challenge for many people because it's hard for people to separate their emotions from actual fact and information. And unfortunately, we seem to be going in the wrong direction when it comes to this type of thinking. Just don't let it happen to you. Point number two, there's often no right answer out here in life. Accurate does not always mean correct, because sometimes there never is actually a correct answer, at least on the objective level. But I'll talk about that later in this episode. Accurate thinkers can see all answers, all possibilities, not just the ones they like, not just the ones that they approve of. Being an accurate thinker means being able to point out to someone not only the virtues of their own ideas, also the flaws in their ideas, and the strong points in any opposition that they may be facing. If you underestimate what you're going up against, you may end up losing, not because you lack resources or skill, but because you underestimated the opponent you were up against, because you allowed your emotions to think for you rather than your logic to think for you. Do not make this mistake. Point number three, accurate thinking usually involving multiple people in your strategic process. Why? Because a fresh set of eyes and ears is less emotional about your situation than you are, meaning they can be more logical and accurate about it, whereas you may rationalize and be emotional about it. You don't want to make decisions based on emotions. You make decisions based on logic. You use emotions as the gas pedal. Make sure you're using them the right way. Do not use them interchangeably. It's normal to be expected that you will be more emotional about your situation than other people are, but other people, this is a good thing about them, those not friends in your life, episode 1031, can tell you the truth about things that you otherwise would not notice, not because you can't, but because you're too close to the situation. It doesn't mean just let anybody help you strategize. Don't take advice or information from anybody, but Find the right type of people who can give you accurate information and are not going to bullshit you. They are much more dispassionate about your situation, and that is important for accurate thinking, is being dispassionate and emotionally detached, not only from the outcome, but also from the planning and thinking process. All this said, send me a text to get my daily motivation text straight to your phone, free of charge. My number is 305-384-6894. And when you are ready to get some help with your accurate thinking and to get some real talk conversation and strategy for building your brand, building your business, making sure you have a strategic plan in place and a personal growth plan that you are getting live trainings every single week and a member-only community to continue the conversation if and when you choose. Join me at workonyourgameuniversity.com. I have a couple coaching programs available there: Bulletproof Mastermind, 3rd-day Mastermind, also Bulletproof Mindset course, and some other stuff. Just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can get started in my programs right now. Work on your game. Dre all day.